Looking back at the 2020s, when America felt hopeless in the face of gun violence, a U.S. history lesson. The 4D meta maps bird's eye satellite edges across the whiteboard as light zings out of a projector. My high school history teacher zooms in, and there at the center is our classroom building. She picks up a red Expo pen and begins the work of tracing over the glare, and we watch until she drags enough veins sprouting through and out of our campus to make a proper escape route. We squint at the bright screen, open our textbooks to the chapter titled Looking Back at the 2020s, when America felt hopeless in the face of gun violence, as she talks about how this used to be the drill back in 2022. The planned passages to escape a gun, while the blinds close shut, lights off, the stillness of our bodies in a corner of the room after the rush, when all the chairs and desks and anything our good hands could move towards a door made a barrier against a bullet. Unless, the hinges were built to open it outwards, and most of them were, she says. And somewhere in the classroom, someone chuckles. How absurd this unadapted architectural flaw. Like when we learned about duck and cover to shelter from a nuclear holocaust, an animation of Bert the turtle tucking his head in his little turtle body broadcasted when the government decided this was how they would keep us safe from our own fears. And of course, my teacher says, continuing as she gazes back at the map when all else failed, teachers told their students the best thing to do is run. And suddenly, I hear Ziahara sitting behind me whisper to Kazdi how she bets she can run all the way to her house in 2 minutes flat as a brag and not as a means of brainstorming survival. Because we've only seen escape routes planned in Mission Impossible 17, everyone huddled around a table mapping each other's placement in a harrowing maze. Raya calls out, "Look, I can see my house from here." We watch the tip of her finger point like a bullet, recognizing where it wants to land. But all of us became stark still when the teacher says that most school shooters were teenagers, said Uvalde, said Columbine, said Stoneman Douglas, said kids back then used to huddle under their desks during drills, but understand that the next shooter was doing the same. And we can't help but look around the room at ourselves, straining to imagine us ever hurting each other. The mass public saw these people as crazy, insane, even evil, she says. But many times, it was the kid in the corner who no one talked to. When people are isolated, detached, nothing feels real and they can do anything. And the class is silent until Jacoby asks, "Were the gun buybacks effective in taking weapons out of their hands?" And she responds with, "Yes, political actions were absolutely necessary to end the violence. We voted out the filibuster. We voted out concealed carry, corporations divested from the NRA, and yes, we stopped the $28 million, the mass of money given to politicians from gun lobbyists every year by the end of the 2020s. But it was beyond that. What else do you think we needed?" And Lesky raises her hand, says, "Not police or armed security in schools, but mental health counselors, culture keepers, social workers." Then Jax's hand reaches up with, "Communities not grounded in reaffirming hate and fear, but resilience and empathy." Then Kay's at the back shouts, "Treating no one as disposable, but building trust, safety, and belonging." And suddenly, the whole class is a chorus of voices so loud that our teacher's pen becomes a magical wand, jotting our ideas onto the whiteboard. And after, exhausted from all the words we grew together, she writes in big letters, "Hope is a discipline." Because hope isn't something reactive, but a practice, she tells us. It doesn't value power over truth or lives. Hope holds a community gently, but also accountable. It holds politicians and corporations accountable. It tells us not to forget that history can repeat itself. It tells us to keep organizing beyond the ballot box, says, "I know the world is bruised and bleeding." Grief so thick, it can fill the lungs of our whole classroom. But hope lets us reimagine a future where we can breathe out. And when the lesson ends, The bell rings, and so we let that breath fall out of our mouths, our bodies so light that we can lift ourselves into the sky and fly all the way back home, or to the movie theater, or to the grocery store down the street, or the food court in the mall, or the temple, or the park, or the parade, or the protest, or anywhere in our community we would gather.